we often make life way more complicated than it needs to be. And that's because we're not feeling okay on the inside. You can talk about God or other things in life, but the truth is, life feels complicated because we're struggling within ourselves. Most of us, except for a few rare saints, have a hard time. We don't always feel love, joy, or excitement. In fact, we rarely feel these things consistently. But why? It's not because we're empty inside or lacking. In fact, there's incredible beauty inside each of us, more than we can even imagine. If I tried to describe it, you might not even fully grasp it. Inside of you is the energy and potential as vast as the entire universe. If it flowed fully into your body, it would be overwhelming. But deep down, you are full of joy, love, wisdom, and everything you need. What I want to tell you is that right now, in this very moment, you are already in a state of oneness and connection with the universe. You've always been there. You're aware of yourself. You know that you're conscious. When you think I am, that's the true you, the part of you that just exists, that just is. But here's the thing. Instead of just being aware of your consciousness, you're constantly focusing on something else, on what you're conscious of. This is the key difference. Instead of simply being aware that you are, you're caught up in what you're paying attention to, what you're thinking about, or what you're experiencing. This is one of the deepest spiritual lessons out there. It goes beyond any specific religion or belief system. You are pure awareness, but you've been focusing your awareness on everything outside of you. If you can shift that focus back to simply being conscious, to just being, you'll understand a profound truth about yourself. What you're aware of are called objects of awareness. For example, you're aware of your thoughts, right? It might sound simple, but it's actually a deep and spiritual concept. Who is the one aware of your thoughts? You care more about the thoughts themselves than who is actually noticing them. But if you weren't aware of them, you wouldn't even know your thoughts existed. There's a lot that you're not aware of, and you don't think about it because it's not in your awareness. Thoughts are just things you notice in your mind, nothing more, nothing less. Think of it like teaching a child about fish. A salmon is a fish, and so is a shark, but they look different. Still, they're both just fish. It's the same with thoughts. They are all just thoughts. Whether it's a thought like, I don't like this, or I love this, or even, I never imagined experiencing this, it's still just a thought. Each thought, no matter what it says, is just that, a thought. You are the one who's conscious. You are aware of these thoughts that come and go. You don't know what's coming next, and sometimes thoughts seem to just pop up randomly. But you're always aware of them. You don't need to overthink it or study it. You already know you're conscious of your thoughts. Spending time trying to understand that you're aware of your thoughts isn't necessary. Here's a better exercise. Be aware of your thoughts and try writing down every single one as it comes up. You'd quickly find that there aren't enough papers or pens in the world to capture them all. Thoughts are constantly happening. Right now, you're probably thinking things like, I don't understand this, or why does he keep talking about this? You're not making those thoughts appear. They're just popping up and you're noticing them. You can also create thoughts. For example, think the word hello over and over in your mind. How do you know you're thinking it? Because you're aware of it happening inside your head. You can also create visual thoughts. Right now there's no boat in the room, but imagine a boat in your mind. Can you see it? Now change it to a speedboat and then into a cruise ship. How do you know it's there? Because you're the one who's looking at it in your mind. Now, ask yourself, are you the boat, or are you the one watching the boat? The boat can change, but you, the one who is aware, stays the same. You were the same you when you thought hello and when you imagined the boat. There's only one consciousness inside you, but it can notice many different things. This is what spirituality is really about. You have a choice. Do you focus on what you're aware of, your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, or do you focus on the one who is aware of these things? One option takes you away from yourself, while the other brings you back to who you truly are. If you practice this, whether you call it meditation or something else, you can learn to stay connected to your true self. Practice being aware of the awareness itself. Did you practice being yourself today? Not just going through the motions, but really practicing being aware of who you are. Some people might think, I don't need to practice being myself, I already am. But that's not exactly the point. Being truly aware of yourself takes effort because we get distracted. Why? Because as soon as a thought enters your mind, your consciousness immediately focuses on it. Just like how light shines on objects, your consciousness shifts its attention away from your true self and onto the thought. That's why it's called the light of consciousness. It works just like light. Imagine turning on a light bulb. The bulb stays in one place, right? But the light it gives off shines outward and falls on different things. The bulb didn't move, it just radiated light. The same thing happens with sunlight. The sun stays in the sky, but its light shines down on everything on Earth. The sun doesn't leave the sky, but its light still touches everything. This is exactly what happens with your consciousness. Your consciousness stays where it is, in the seat of self, but it shines out its awareness. Just like light is made of photons, your consciousness is made of awareness. It radiates that awareness onto things, like your thoughts or the world around you. When you close your eyes, your consciousness turns inward, focusing on your thoughts. When you open your eyes, the same consciousness shifts to focus on the outside world. The important thing to remember is that your consciousness never leaves its source, just like the light bulb or the sun. You stay in one place, but your awareness shines outward onto everything you focus on. To understand this fully is to grasp one of the deepest teachings in spirituality. Just like a light bulb doesn't need to move to shine light, your consciousness doesn't need to leave its center to be aware of the world. It's always seated in its original place, radiating awareness onto whatever you're paying attention to. If you can understand this, you'll understand a lot of what yoga and other spiritual teachings are trying to explain. Your consciousness is always there, always centered, and always radiating awareness. And if you wonder where exactly that seat of consciousness is, that's a deeper question. But what's important to realize now is that your awareness shines out from within you, just like light shines from its source onto objects. I'm always aware of things around me, my thoughts, what I see, and what I hear. We're always noticing these things, right? But have you ever thought about where that awareness comes from? We can easily point out the source of light, like a bulb or the sun. But what about the source of our own consciousness? If you say, "Oh, I read about it," then your awareness is just focused on the words in a book. You're still not aware of the actual source of your consciousness. You're just aware of thoughts that were created as you read. You don't really know the source of your consciousness. You might say, "I have ideas about it." But ideas are just thoughts. I have concepts. Those are also thoughts. Even if you say, "I'm open to many views," those are still just different thoughts. Your awareness is like light. And when you focus on a thought, you're shining your light of consciousness onto that thought. But that's not the same as knowing the source of the light. Just like moving the light around doesn't tell you anything about the light bulb itself. This is why spirituality isn't about having ideas, views, or opinions. It's about understanding the essence of who you are. The core of your being is your consciousness, your awareness. But here's the problem. Your consciousness often gets caught up in what it's shining on, whether it's a thought, a feeling, or something else in the outside world. Imagine you're staring at someone or something you find beautiful, and you can't take your eyes off of it. It becomes your whole world. You're so focused that everything else disappears. That's what happens with our consciousness. It gets fixated on certain things, and we lose sight of everything else. Whether it's a person, an object, or even a thought, your consciousness can get stuck. This can happen with trauma too. For example, a child who witnesses something traumatic, like the death of their parents, might become so fixated on that event that they struggle to move on. Their awareness is stuck on that painful memory. Even though the world moves on, they stay fixated on that moment. It's hard, but if you can help them shift their focus, they might be able to come back to the present. Have you ever had a thought you just couldn't shake? A thought that took over your life for a while? Maybe it was a bad experience, something painful that you kept thinking about. It happens to everyone. Sometimes it's not even something negative. Sometimes it's love or a deep passion. You might become so infatuated with someone that you can't think about anything else. You're willing to give up everything because of that feeling. You might even say, I don't care about money or anything. I could live in a tent with this person and I'd be happy. But then, over time, that intense feeling can fade. The thing you were so fixated on no longer feels as important. Life moves on, and sometimes that leads to disappointment, like a relationship that seemed perfect at first but eventually falls apart. Think about how many people get married believing their love will last forever. No one stands at the altar thinking they'll end up getting divorced. In that moment, they truly believe this is the person they will love for the rest of their life. Yet, for many, that initial feeling of being completely in love fades, and they eventually grow apart. The point is, our consciousness often gets fixated on certain things, thoughts, feelings, or experiences. But those fixations don't last forever. Life keeps moving, and sometimes we get stuck on something, only to realize later that our attention has shifted elsewhere. That's why it's important to understand the source of our consciousness, rather than just getting caught up in the things it shines on. Half of all marriages end in divorce, and that tells us something important. It shows how often our consciousness becomes fixated on things outside of itself. We get caught up in thoughts, emotions, or people, but we lose sight of something deeper. True enlightenment means becoming a self-realized being. What does that mean? It means you've discovered the true source of yourself. You've realized where your consciousness comes from, and that source has a name: God. This is what Christ meant when he said, "My Father and I are one." He wasn't lost in the objects of his awareness. He had returned to the source of the light that shines through him and all of us. The source of your consciousness is the same as everyone else's. Just like the sun shines its light on everything, on good people, bad people, the earth, plants, it's still the same sun. No matter where those light falls, if you trace it back, you'll always end up at the same source. It's the same with your consciousness. We all share this one source of light, of awareness. This is a deep concept, but it's crucial to understand. Many people spend their time asking, how can I fix my life? How can I attract what I want? But here's the truth. You won't find true happiness that way. Real well-being comes from letting go of being lost in all the things you're paying attention to, whether that's thoughts, feelings, or desires, and instead exploring and returning to the source of your being. The true nature of consciousness is to be aware of itself, and the nature of the self is pure bliss, pure ecstasy, pure love. It's not just something you experience once in a while. This state of bliss has always been there, and it will always be there. We just need to stop focusing on what distracts us and start paying attention to the source of our being. When you do that, you'll understand that the deepest joy, love, and light are already within you, waiting to be uncovered. You don't need to search for them outside of yourself. They've been with you all along. So where does darkness come from? If you shine a bright light through something dark like a filter, the light seems to change. But it's still the same bright light. It's just shining through something that isn't so bright or eternal. The light didn't lose its beauty or power, it's just being blocked or filtered by something else. That's kind of what happens to us spiritually. Spirituality is about going back to the source of your being, the part of you that watches your thoughts, the part that is aware of everything happening inside and around you. Let's not call it consciousness because that can sound too technical. Instead, think of it like this. Who or what is watching your thoughts? Who notices when you're thinking? Here's something to try. Every moment of your life you have a choice. Either you can get lost in your thoughts, or you can be aware that you're having those thoughts. You can either dive into them or just notice them. But let's be real, thoughts can be pretty strong, right? And we haven't even talked about emotions yet. What are emotions? You can't point to one, but everyone knows what emotions feel like. They're just another thing that your awareness can focus on, something that comes from your heart. But can you get lost in your emotions? Absolutely. Think about how often we say, I lost myself in my anger, or I lost myself in jealousy. That's exactly what's happening. You, the self, get caught up in something that isn't you, like anger or sadness. You are the light, but you're focusing on something that's making you upset. So why not just come back? Come back to yourself, to the one who is aware of all these thoughts and emotions instead of getting lost in them. In the end, consciousness is everything. It's literally everything. And you are that consciousness. You are God. Christ said something very powerful, as I sit by the throne of my Father, so you shall sit by my side. That means that the same consciousness that Christ had, you have too. You are made of that same light, that same awareness, that same power. So whenever you feel lost in your thoughts or emotions, remember that you can always come back to your true self, the one who is aware, the one who watches it all unfold. That's where real peace and understanding come from. You're not just your thoughts or emotions. You're the awareness behind them. And that awareness is eternal, unchanging, and always there. As I sit by the throne of my Father, so you will sit with me, and the things I do, you will do too, even greater things. This means that you are not a sinner, you are not evil, and you are not worthless. You are the most beautiful creation that ever existed, and nothing you do can ever change that. Think of it like this. If a beautiful light shines through dark filters, the light itself doesn't stop being beautiful. It's still just as bright and amazing at its source. The question is, will the light come back to its source, or will it stay focused on the darkness it's shining through and get upset about it? This idea connects to the story of the fall from the Garden of Eden. When you are connected to your true self, you are in a state of bliss, one with God and with all creation. But the moment you get too caught up in the external world, emotions, thoughts, worries, you start losing sight of who you really are. You're still your true self, but now you're looking at the world through a distorted lens. That's the fall from the garden. The moment you stop being aware of who you truly are and start focusing too much on your emotions, thoughts, and the world around you, you forget your real nature. Instead of saying, I am love, I am peace, I am happiness, you start thinking, how do I make this person like me? How do I stop this from happening? How do I get everything I want? You get caught up in chasing things, and that's exhausting. The Bible says that when you fall from the garden, you have to work for everything, love, happiness, peace. But the truth is, you already are love, happiness, and peace. The only reason you feel like you're missing these things is because you got so caught up in what you're looking at, your thoughts, your emotions, that you forgot who you really are. To return to peace, you need to come back to the source of your being. This is called returning to the seat of self, or self-realization, or enlightenment. Whatever you call it, the truth is that you are already there. Right now, in this moment, you are already your true self. Well, I don't feel like it, you might say. Of course you don't, because you're focused on your feelings, trying to fix them. But the key is to stop focusing on what you feel or think and just remember who you really are. When you do that, you return to the source of love, peace, and happiness. It's always there, waiting for you to come back. I want to have positive thoughts. Great. You can try to control your thoughts and make them positive. But let's be honest, it's a lot of work. You might stress yourself out trying to constantly manage your thoughts and emotions, trying to keep everything feeling good. You're basically trying to make the world around you work in a way that makes you feel better inside. Think about it. Don't you have to constantly work to make things around you go just right? You want people to behave a certain way, your job to go well, your appearance to be just right, even the weather to be how you like it. You're always trying to control what's outside of you, so that when it affects you, it makes your thoughts and emotions nicer. This is what it means to be caught. You're caught in the endless struggle to make everything outside of you go your way, because you believe your happiness depends on it. Why? Because you don't realize who you truly are. You think you are your thoughts and emotions. If you asked someone who they are, they'd probably say, "I'm Mary Jane, married to Sam with 2 kids." But that's not who they really are. That's just what's happening in their life. Even before you had your family, your job, or any of these experiences, you still existed. You were there when you were 10 years old, long before you met your partner or had your kids. But if someone asks you who you are, you might define yourself by these things. I'm the one who acted in the school play, or I'm the one who got hurt and went through a tough time. These are things that happen to you, but they are not who you are. They are experiences, and you are the one who had those experiences. Can you see the difference? You aren't the things that happened to you. You're the one who was always there, having the experiences. The same you was there when you were a kid, when you got married, when you went through difficult times. You're the one who's been witnessing it all, but your experiences have been different at every stage of life. Here's the thing. Over time, you've bundled all these experiences together and formed a picture of yourself. This is called your self-concept, the way you think about yourself. Psychology calls it your ego. It's basically the collection of thoughts and ideas you have about who you think you are, based on your experiences. But you're not your experiences. You've simply built an identity around them and said, "This is me." But in reality, you are the same person who has had all those experiences, not the experiences themselves. That's what getting lost means. You've become so caught up in what you've experienced, what you've seen, heard, thought, and felt, that you've forgotten who you really are. And because you've lost touch with your true self, which is pure joy and peace, you feel like you need to work hard just to feel okay. It's a constant effort to try to make your life and feelings better. But the truth is, you don't need to work that hard. You've just forgotten who you are. And that's why you feel like you always need to fix things. It's a tough cycle, but you can break free by remembering the real you underneath all the experiences. Once you connect with that deeper part of yourself, even for just a moment, no matter what you've been through in life, everything changes. Just 1 second of touching your true being, and you'll never see things the same way again. Why? Because you realize, wow, there's something really amazing inside of me. Why am I wasting time getting caught up in all this outside stuff? You see, the external world can only distract you from your inner greatness, but it doesn't have to. And that's what we're going to talk about. Now, when you start to understand who you really are, you get a glimpse of your own beauty. You realize that you are always connected to your true self, the part of you that's one with something greater. Call it God or the universe. This connection has always been there and always will be. Nothing can change that. However, you also have the ability to shift your focus away from that deeper self and get caught up in things that aren't really you. Let's be real. Don't we all identify with things outside of ourselves? Okay, I'll give you a common example. Falling in love. It's an incredible experience, right? By all means, love is spiritual and beautiful. It can help you grow in so many ways. But when you fall in love with someone, what happens? You start to project your sense of self onto them. It becomes more than just an experience. Suddenly, you're no longer just you. You're this person's partner. Your whole sense of self gets wrapped up in that relationship. Falling in love is a beautiful experience. It can open your heart, make you feel alive, and make everything seem magical. But at the end of the day, it's still just that, an experience. And sometimes the experience is so intense that you start to believe, this is who I am. I'm their lover. This relationship is my whole life. You shift your identity from who you really are to the experience of being with them, And while it's a powerful and beautiful experience, it's still not who you are. So what happens if the relationship ends? This is where it gets tough. You feel shattered, broken, like you've lost everything. Your heart feels like it's been torn apart and you don't know what to do with yourself. If the breakup is really bad, you might feel completely lost, like you no longer have a sense of purpose. Why does this happen? Because you had defined yourself as something you're not. You might say, "But I love them so much." And that's true. It was a beautiful experience and there's nothing wrong with that. Love is amazing. But it's important to remember that even though you had that experience, it doesn't define who you are. You existed before you met them, and you will continue to exist after they're gone. The problem is, when they leave, you don't like what you see inside yourself. While you were with them, it was easy to feel good about life. But now, when you look inside, it feels empty, and you don't like that feeling. But the truth is, it's still you looking in there. It's always been you. It's just that you got so caught up in the experience of love that you forgot who you really are. And that's okay, but now you can begin to see things differently. This is why we struggle so much in life. We keep attaching our sense of identity to the things that happen around us. We say, "This is who I am," based on our experiences. Example. Let's say you decide to buy a new car. You walk into a showroom full of cars, and there are people sitting in them, checking them out, maybe even testing them. You don't mind any of it at first. You speak with a salesperson, look at a few options, and then say, "I like that one." You negotiate the price, and once everything is settled, you sign a piece of paper. Suddenly something changes. Now you walk back to that car and think, "Get off my car." Wait a minute. People have been sitting in that car all day and you didn't care. But now that you've signed a piece of paper, it's your car. Did you build the car? Do you even know how it was made or where it came from? What if you had signed for a different car? Would you be saying, "Get away from that one"? You see, as soon as you attach yourself to it, it becomes yours. This is how quickly the ego works. Just by signing a piece of paper, your self-concept is now wrapped around the car. Before that, it wasn't your car. It was just a car. But now, in your mind, it belongs to you. This is exactly what we do with everything, our relationships, our jobs, even where we live. For example, maybe you want a certain office at work, and when someone else gets it, you're upset. "That should have been mine." It's the same thing. You create a picture in your mind of how things should be, and when reality doesn't match, you get frustrated. So, this is how it works. We make up stories in our heads about what's mine and what's me, and when things don't line up with those stories, we feel hurt or angry. But remember, those are just stories. You are not your car, your job, or your relationship. Those are just experiences, not who you truly are. Now imagine this. You park your car, walk away, and when you come back, there's a scratch on it. How do you even notice that scratch? "I have a magnifying glass," you say. Well, that's pretty funny, but it's also true. Ever see those two-sided mirrors they have in hotels? One side is regular, but the other magnifies your face like 600 times. Why would anyone want to do that? Your face doesn't exactly look great under that kind of magnification. Suddenly, you notice every tiny imperfection. Oh no, there's a black spot. And here's the funny part. You get all worked up because in your mind it's your face or your car. But the truth is, it's not. It's just something you're looking at. It changes over time, doesn't it? So clearly it can't be you because you're the same person who's been looking at it all along. Think about it. You've looked at your face in the mirror yesterday, last week, even years ago. It looked different each time, right? But the one thing that stayed the same is you, the one who's been looking. That's who you really are, the awareness behind it all. You're not your face, you're not your car, and you're not your thoughts or emotions either. You're the one who's aware of them. You are consciousness, the inner being that is always present. You can observe your thoughts, you can observe your feelings, and you can observe everything you experience through your senses. But those things are not you. You are simply aware of them. Now, in any sentence, there's a subject, an object, and a verb. You are always the subject. There's just one subject, your true self, who has been there all along. But we get lost when we start identifying ourselves with objects like our thoughts, emotions, or the things we see and hear. These are all just objects in our awareness. The more we get caught up in those objects, the more lost we become. That's what it means to be a lost soul. This is the same idea as the fall from the garden. It's not about being cast out physically, it's about losing touch with who you truly are. Instead of staying connected to your inner being, you get distracted by the outside world, and that's when the trouble begins. So remember, you are the consciousness, the one who observes, not the things you observe. Keep coming back to that, and you'll stay connected to who you really are. So what can we do about this? It doesn't sound like much fun, right? Well, it's not. It's tough. Life feels like a struggle, doesn't it? Even when things are going your way, there's always that fear. What if it stops? You're constantly worrying. For example, if someone says, "I love what you're wearing," you might find yourself stressing over what to wear next time. You want to keep getting that same praise. It never ends. Now imagine you're a musician. You play a great set, and everyone claps. It feels amazing. But then, when it's time to perform again, you worry, what if they don't like it next time? See what I mean? When you base your sense of happiness on things outside of yourself, you start feeling anxious. You try to control everything, what people think, how events unfold, and how others behave. But the truth is, no matter how hard you try, you can't control all of that. How are you going to shape the world so that every single moment makes you happy? You can't. You don't even always know what will make you happy, right? Sometimes it's hard just to figure out what you really want. That should be a big wake-up call. If you have trouble knowing what will make you happy, how can you expect to make everything around you fit that mold? Think about it. You might say, "Tomorrow I want to go on a perfect hike." But can you guarantee it won't rain? Can you make sure it's not too hot or too cold? What if the person you're supposed to go with gets sick? All these things are out of your control. What does disappointment mean? It means you imagined something in your head and then reality didn't match up with it. And that's why we get upset. We make these expectations, but life doesn't always cooperate. So, what's the solution? The answer is to stop identifying with your thoughts and expectations. If you let your ego take control, it becomes a problem. When things don't go your way, your ego starts complaining inside. Sometimes it even lashes out, and that just makes you feel worse. The key is to realize that trying to control everything around you is a losing battle. Instead of focusing on changing the outside world, you have to shift your attention inward. Stop trying to bend the world to your will and learn to stay centered no matter what happens. That's how you find peace. Why live like that when you're the most beautiful being on earth? That's the heart of spirituality. It's about coming back to who you really are, not trying to change the world to fit your desires. So many people teach you to focus on getting everything you want. But is that really the answer? Sure, you can attract things to yourself, money, success, fame. But then what? You'll just keep needing more because things change and you'll change too. And when it doesn't work out, you'll get upset. People often say, "Why can't I attract what I want? Am I doing something wrong?" Maybe you want money. How much? Even Elon Musk's wealth might seem small compared to what you desire. Maybe you want to be famous, but how famous? You might want to be remembered forever, like George Washington. But guess what? You can chase all that if you want, but you'll never be satisfied. You'll always be chasing something, thinking it will make you okay. The real question isn't about getting what you want. It's about understanding why you're not okay to begin with. Why do you feel like you need to fill that emptiness inside by controlling the world around you? I just explained why you don't feel okay. It's because you've moved away from your true self. You've forgotten the core of your being, the place where you're already whole and complete. So what should you do? Do you need to leave everything behind and meditate in the mountains? No, that's not necessary. You don't need to run away from the world. Instead, figure out why you're uncomfortable with simply being conscious, why you can't just be okay with whatever thoughts or emotions come your way. Life is full of ups and downs. There are pleasant thoughts and not so pleasant ones. There are joyful emotions and painful ones. There are people who will love you deeply and others who can't stand the sight of you. But that's life. It's full of variety. And that variety is what makes life rich. Spirituality is about embracing it all without losing yourself in it. It's not about trying to control the world or change how people feel about you. It's about being grounded in who you really are. No matter what's happening around you, you can handle all of it, the good and the bad, when you remember that none of it defines you. You're much bigger than all of it. Hooray! Hooray! Isn't life amazing? But what does it have to do with you? Absolutely nothing. Just like light shining on a picture, whether it's shining on one image or another, whether it's bright or dim, it doesn't change the light itself at all. The light stays the same. That's the place you want to reach. It's not about avoiding everything that might bother you or chasing everything that makes you feel good. Think about it. Whether you're busy trying to avoid problems or busy trying to grab happiness, you're still constantly struggling. It's never ending. Life will always throw things at you. You worry about getting older, about ending up in a nursing home, or about things not going your way. But guess what? Life will keep happening whether you like it or not. Look around you. You have grandparents, parents, brothers and sisters. Are any of them constantly in a state of bliss? Totally at peace with everything all the time? Most likely not. So what's the solution? It's realizing that you're already seated in the best place you could ever be, right inside yourself. You are in the seat of your being. But the problem is, you can't handle everything you're seeing or experiencing. Does that mean you should stop looking at the world? Does it mean you should give up and retreat from everything? No, it doesn't. It means you need to learn how to experience life without letting it shake you. It's like driving down a road. Can you handle looking at the white lines on the road without freaking out? Of course you can. You don't stop the car, cry, or pull your hair out because the lines change to dashes or turn yellow, or because there are double lines instead of single ones. You just keep driving. In the same way, you need to be able to handle the experiences of life without losing control. Can you handle a windy day? Whether it's a gentle breeze or a strong gust blowing your hair back, can you just let it be what it is? Can you enjoy the rain when it comes, or the heat when the sun blazes down? It's all part of life, and you can learn to embrace it without needing it to be any different. The key is being able to experience things without getting caught up in them. If you can do that, you won't hold on to those experiences and let them pile up inside you. There's no need to go to a therapist later on to dig out your feelings about the white lines on the road. You just learn to experience them and move on. Life is full of different experiences and they're all okay. Whether things are going your way or not, you can learn to stay grounded, to remain peaceful inside yourself. You don't need to control everything. You just need to be able to experience life without letting it control you. That's where true freedom lies. Oh, so you've got this white line issue. Here's the thing. Most of what we experience in life just passes right through us. Let me throw a number at you. About 99.9% of everything you've ever sensed, whether it's the trees you drive by, the people you walk past, every single blade of grass, or the leaves on a tree, just comes and goes. You notice it, and it just flows through you. It's like your mind says, okay, I experienced that, thanks. And you move on. That's how it's supposed to be. You experience life, but you don't need to hold on to every little thing. You don't freak out about every moment. You just let things come, experience them, and then let them go. But then there's that 0.1%. This is the small fraction of things that stick with you, the moments that you can't just let go. Like when you're walking down the street and you see someone who looks like your girlfriend walking with another guy. It's not her, but it looks like her. And how do you feel? You can't handle it. You get upset even though it's not real. Some people are so affected by things like this that when they go home, they'll even accuse their girlfriend. I saw you with someone else. The girlfriend might reply, no, you didn't. That wasn't me. But instead of letting it go, they say, yes, I did. Don't lie to me. The person they saw wasn't even her, but their mind is convinced it was, and now they're stuck. It bothers them so much that they hold on to it, even when it didn't happen. Some people even have dreams that mess up their waking lives. Imagine someone dreaming they got into a terrible car accident, and in the dream, they died, leaving their kids behind. They wake up terrified and say, that was so awful, I'm never driving again. But wait, nothing actually happened. It was just a dream. And yet, they let the fear from that dream affect their real life. They'll say, but it could happen. Sure, anything could happen. But that doesn't mean you should stop living your life. The point is, it's not about avoiding experiences or pretending things don't happen. It's about being able to handle what you experience without letting it take over your life. Things will happen. Sometimes they'll be good. Sometimes they'll be bad. But the key is to learn to let the experience flow through you like the 99.9% of life that you already handle with ease. When something sticks like that 0.1%, instead of freaking out, you need to recognize it for what it is, just another experience. You can handle it, and you don't have to let it weigh you down. That's the secret. You don't stop experiencing life, but you learn to experience it without getting lost in it. So the main idea is learning how to deal with the experiences you're going through right now. Take the one I'm experiencing at this moment, for example. I recognize it and accept it. That's it. Simple. I acknowledge it and I'm open to it. It's like saying, hello, welcome. Come in, pass through, stay as long as you need. My door is open for you. Experiences come and go, right? But here's the thing. You can't only do this with what's happening now. You also can't do it with things that have already happened. That's where people struggle. They hold on to the past, but those experiences are over. They won't repeat. It's impossible. The exact same situation will never happen again because the universe doesn't work like that. Everything changes, even down to the smallest atoms. Think about it. You can't change what happened 20 years ago or what your parents did when you were a child. It's done. So if you can't accept reality, both past and present, it's going to be hard for you to move forward in life. Spirituality isn't about saying the right words or trying to attract the things you want into your life. It's about learning to face reality as it is, without resistance. I know it's hard to deal with what's happening right now. We all struggle with that. But why spend so much energy stressing over something that's already finished and will never happen again? Take my own example. My mother said something to me and she passed away 20 years ago. She'll never say it again. So why should I waste time worrying about it? It's done. There's nothing left to fix. When my sister and I were kids, we didn't get along at all. We were always fighting. These days, though, we're great. We get along just fine. But every now and then, if I start thinking back to those old days, I find it hard to even look at her. It's like I'm stuck in the past, reliving something that's not even happening anymore. And then this voice in my head says, "What are you doing? That stuff isn't happening now. It's never going to happen again. So why are you letting it mess with your mind?" If you're struggling to deal with something that's already over, chances are you're also struggling with what's happening right now in your life. So that's two things you're struggling with, the past and the present. But now think about the future, something that hasn't even happened yet. And here's the tricky part. You're imagining all these things that could go wrong in the future. Can you handle that? Suddenly the answer is, oh no, I can't handle it. When I think about the future, I always imagine the worst things that could happen. It's funny how quiet you get when you start thinking about the future. Why is that? It's because none of those things have happened yet. Not a single one. The future is still wide open, and nothing you're imagining has come to pass. So what do you mean you can't handle it? You're stressing out over something that hasn't even happened. Here's the deal. If you're constantly stuck in the past, worrying about the future and struggling with the present, it's no wonder you're feeling overwhelmed. Can you see the pattern? Spirituality isn't about running away from things or pretending they don't exist. It's about saying to yourself, I can handle this. That's your new mindset. Say it out loud with me. I can handle this. Even if you're not into retreats or self-help stuff, this one's for you. The first time I tried it, I didn't think it would work, but it made a difference. So as you say, I can handle this. Think about the situation right now that's got you feeling stuck, and keep repeating to yourself, I can handle this. I can handle this. I can handle this. When you say, I can handle this, that's the key. You just need to change your mindset. Someday you'll realize that the reason you couldn't handle something was because you kept telling yourself, I can't handle this. It's your mind playing tricks on you. That's the only reason you feel stuck, because you convinced yourself you couldn't handle it. Now look at your past. It already happened, right? It's over. You got through it. You survived it and you're here now, so why can't you handle something that's done? The problem is you didn't let it go. You stored those old memories, those bad feelings deep inside. You couldn't handle them at the time, and now they keep popping up whenever something triggers them. It could be something someone says or something they don't say, and suddenly all those old feelings come rushing back. That's not how it should be. It's not healthy to keep holding on to things like that. I don't care what psychology says. You held on to those memories, that pain, because you chose to. There's nothing inside of you that's designed to glue those bad experiences in place. Inside, you're meant to be light, empty, free. But when you don't let go of the things you didn't like, you store them inside yourself. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Because you didn't like it, you decided to keep it. The more you disliked something, the more you held on to it. Crazy, right? You've got to laugh at that. I remember someone once said to me, what you did will ruin the rest of my life. I'll make sure of it. I'll hold on to this forever just to show how much you hurt me. It's almost like we convince ourselves that holding on to the pain is the right thing to do. But true spirituality is the opposite of that. Spirituality is about understanding that the world has been unfolding for 4.5 billion years, and it will keep unfolding. Things come and go. It's the natural flow of life. Now, I'm not asking you to handle 4.5 billion years of history. I'm asking you to handle 90 or 100 years, if you're lucky enough to live that long. Can you handle it? That's a huge difference, right? You're on this tiny little planet, floating in the middle of nowhere. And Earth is an amazing place. Trees, animals, the sky, people, relationships, love. It's a good planet. And if you don't like it here, well, try going to Mars and see how long you last there. We've looked out into the universe with powerful telescopes like the Hubble and the James Webb. They can see layers upon layers of stars and galaxies, but all we find out there are burning gases, fire and dirt. Nothing else. So, as far as we can tell, there's nothing out there for us. Earth is where life is happening. So the problem isn't with the world or with what's going on in your life. The problem is that you're struggling to handle it. And because you can't handle it, you start fighting against reality, trying to change it into something you can manage. But that's impossible because the person next to you probably doesn't want things to be the way you want them. Have you noticed that? Everyone's trying to shape the world to their liking, and it's causing all this trouble. The real solution is learning how to handle life as it is, not trying to control it. When you're struggling, it's not nature you're fighting against. Imagine this. You want to go camping today, but it's raining. You don't want it to rain. But guess what? It looks like it's going to rain anyway. Meanwhile, your neighbour, who's a farmer, actually wants it to rain because it's good for his crops. Now, do you get why there's so much conflict in life? Everyone wants different things based on their own situation. People often ask, why is there so much war or conflict? The real question might be, why isn't there even more? The reason is that everyone is making up their own version of what they think will make them happy or okay. But here's the problem. No one agrees on what that is, because everyone has had different experiences. We all carry different baggage from our past, and that's why no two people are the same. What you've gone through in life, the things that bothered you, those are different from what bothered your partner, your friends, or your neighbors. That means what you've held on to inside, the stuff you didn't like or couldn't handle, is unique to you. And everyone else has done the same thing with their experiences. So think about it. Everyone is different on the inside. And because of that, everyone wants different things in life. Naturally, that leads to conflict. It's unavoidable until someone decides to stop holding on to the stuff they don't like. That's the real issue here. People are storing up bad feelings, negative emotions, and unresolved experiences. But what if you could let go? Let's say you have experiences you didn't like. Maybe it rained on your 6th birthday and you've hated the rain ever since. Maybe you were told God made it rain, so now you're upset with God too. That's how these things get stuck inside you. You carry that memory for years, even though you were only 6 at the time. It's still in there, and it's still affecting how you feel about things today. But at some point you need to wake up and realize, this isn't working. Holding on to all these negative feelings doesn't work for you personally, and it definitely doesn't work in society either. So how do you change it? You have to be different. You have to start saying to yourself, I can handle this. Let's say someone comes up to you and says, I don't like what you did. But maybe you didn't even do it. Someone else did. Instead of getting upset or defensive, you just say, I can handle it. That's the key. It's not about getting the other person to stop blaming you or trying to change their mind. It's about whether you can handle the emotions and thoughts that come up when you're falsely accused or when someone doesn't like something about you. At the end of the day, life is full of these little moments where things don't go our way. It rains when we don't want it to. People blame us for things we didn't do, or something from our past still bothers us. But the solution is simple. Learn to handle it. Stop storing up the stuff that hurts you. Handle what comes your way, and you'll find peace inside, no matter what happens outside. I'm not making any big statements here, and we haven't even gotten into all the deeper stuff yet. I'm just pointing something out. If you can't handle something, you shouldn't be putting yourself in situations where it's bound to come up. For example, if you can't handle having your face in water, then swimming probably isn't for you. If you can't stand the sight of blood, you're definitely not the person to help out at a car accident scene. Does that make sense? The point is simple. When you're the one who keeps saying, I can't handle this, then you're the worst person to deal with that situation. Yet what do people do? They tell themselves they can't handle something, but instead of learning to manage it, they try to make sure it never happens again. You spend all this time and energy trying to control everything, making sure you never have to face that discomfort again. You hear what I'm saying? It's like you're trapping yourself in a cycle of fear, control, and manipulation, all because you think you can't handle reality as it is. Now let's say someone accuses you of something you didn't even do. It feels bad, right? Those emotions start stirring up inside you, and you begin to feel defensive. You might want to push back or prove them wrong. The question is, can you handle that feeling? Not the situation itself, but the emotions that come with it. Can you deal with the discomfort of being blamed for something you didn't do? This is what I'm trying to help you understand. You can't stop things like that from happening. People will say things, and situations will arise that you don't like. The real question is, can you learn to handle it? It's not about making it not happen or trying to control everything around you. It's about managing how you feel when it does happen. It's just like learning anything new, whether it's tennis, golf, or the piano. You don't expect to be an expert right away, but you can learn. And the same goes for learning how to handle tough emotions and challenging situations. You may feel like you're going to cry, and that's fine. Just because you don't know how to handle something now doesn't mean you'll never be able to. The highest spiritual practice isn't about avoiding discomfort or controlling life to make it easier. It's about learning how to handle whatever comes your way. And just like with any skill, it's something you can get better at. How you choose to go about it is up to you, but the key is to recognize that you can learn to handle it. You just have to practice. But here's what I'm saying. If you're going through life trying to avoid problems in the name of spirituality, you're not actually learning how to deal with them. If you're always blaming others because you can't handle something, you're missing the point. You're not learning to manage those situations. So here's a simple technique you can try. When you wake up in the morning, take a deep breath and say to yourself, "Things are going to happen today and I can handle them. I can handle them." That's your starting point. It sets the tone for the day. As you go through your day, try to keep reminding yourself of that. Stay aware that your goal is to handle whatever comes your way calmly and with grace. Why is it challenging? Well, because life situations are powerful, and they tend to pull you out of your calm, centered place, the place where you feel in control of your thoughts and emotions. When you're centered, you're saying, "I can handle this." Now, you may not be perfectly enlightened yet, but at least you're in a better state of mind. There's a difference between being completely enlightened and simply staying centered. When you're centered, your consciousness is steady. You're aware that you're in the process of learning how to manage life's challenges. That's a good step forward. Over time, your consciousness will rise even higher, but that's a more advanced part of the journey. Right now, you're learning to stay centered and handle things. So again, when you wake up in the morning, remind yourself, "I can handle this. I can handle today." And then as you move through your day, check in with yourself. Maybe it's when you sit down for lunch or take a short break. Ask yourself, "How am I doing so far? Am I handling things well?" You might realize, "Okay, I didn't handle that smell in the air very well. I got annoyed at the car in front of me for driving too slow. I couldn't deal with how hot it was, and I was upset about sweating. I also said something earlier that might have been stupid, and now I'm worried about what others think." Suddenly you realize, wow, I've got a lot of work to do. And that's okay. It's part of the process. You're becoming more aware of the areas where you need to improve. Start with the little things that get under your skin for no real reason. These are things that only bother you because you've decided to let them bother you. Use them as practice. How do you learn to handle them? By relaxing. When something that used to annoy you comes up, practice staying calm. Instead of tightening up and getting frustrated, just relax. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and learning to handle it with a peaceful mind. The more you practice this, the better you'll get. You'll start to find that things that used to bother you don't affect you as much anymore. It all begins with the small stuff and builds from there. It's a journey, and every step counts. You're driving in a 55-mile zone, but the car in front of you is only going 30 miles per hour. You're in a hurry, and it's a single-lane road with heavy traffic, so you can't pass them. Now you have two choices. You can either get frustrated or you can stay calm. It's that simple. There's no in-between. If you choose to get upset, that's your decision. But it's not a smart one. You'll just end up irritated, complaining about it at work later, telling everyone how slow this driver was, maybe even thinking, "I should report this." But in reality, that doesn't help at all, does it? Instead, catch yourself in that moment. Let it go. Practice letting go. If you believe in using affirmations, you could even say to yourself, maybe that driver is someone's grandmother, enjoying her last years of being able to drive. I'm not going to tailgate her, honk at her, or send out negative energy. You could say, "It's okay, Grandma. Take your time. I'll give you the space you need." You can do that, can't you? This is like practicing an instrument. It's practice for staying calm and being okay with situations you can't control. It's all about shifting your perspective. Imagine this. It's nighttime, and the stars are shining bright in the sky. It's romantic, right? You might even wish to see a shooting star. But have you ever thought about the fact that you're so close to one star that you can actually feel its heat? That's the sun, right? But it's still a star, and during the day it's so powerful that we can feel its warmth all the way here on Earth. Have you ever realized that's what's happening? You're literally feeling the heat from a star that's millions of miles away. There are countless stars out there, but this one, the sun, is close enough that its heat reaches you. So instead of getting annoyed by the heat or the sunburn, why not appreciate it? After all, it's not just a sunburn, you're getting starburn. And who wouldn't want that? You're experiencing something amazing every day, being this close to a star. Just take a moment, look up, and realize that the sun is a star, shining down on you during the day. Now think about how you can apply that same attitude to everything else in your life. Little by little, you can learn to handle situations with more ease. For example, when someone doesn't say hello when they come home, or when your spouse is in a bad mood, you can choose to handle it calmly. So what if they're in a mood? It's not the end of the world. You start to realize that what's going on inside them is the same as what's going on inside you. They have their bad days just like you do. And as you begin to let go of all the small annoyances and frustrations, you start feeling lighter and happier. Why? Because you're no longer carrying all that emotional baggage around. It's like removing dark filters that block out the light. The more you let go of, the brighter your outlook becomes. I promise, if you practice this enough, you'll find that you can handle even bigger challenges. It all starts with learning to let go first. Does this mean you avoid dealing with problems? Not at all. You'll still handle what needs to be handled, but you'll do it from a place of calm, not frustration. Most of the time, there's nothing that needs to be fixed anyway. The star in the sky isn't something you need to fix. The way someone else drives or the fact that it's raining isn't something you need to change. There's no need to stress about it. Instead, just stop complaining and start relaxing through it. You'll notice that all of a sudden, you can handle things much better. Wouldn't that be a beautiful way to live? And here's why this is so important. When you learn to handle things without holding on to them, you stop storing them inside. Those little arguments or frustrations, like a disagreement with your kids or spouse in the morning, don't have to ruin your day. People argue, it's normal, but if you let it go, you won't bring that negativity with you when you get home later. You won't still be holding on to it, waiting to continue the fight. In fact, you might not even remember what the argument was about because you've already moved on. So the key is to let go, to stop storing all the negativity and tension. When you do that, life feels a lot lighter and more enjoyable. You're no longer weighed down by the small stuff, and you can focus on what really matters. You need to learn how to handle things in life. Why? Because when you handle them well, you don't keep them stored inside. They won't leave any scars or emotional damage. Instead, you become a happier person because you're not carrying around all that negative baggage. Now, when you start letting go of things, you might notice that some old stuff, old emotions, past pains, will begin to surface. I've always said this would happen, and recently someone wrote to me confirming it. They said, "You were right. When I stopped pushing down more emotions, the old stuff started coming back up. But here's the thing. You actually want that old stuff to come up. You don't want to keep it buried inside you. Once it surfaces, you learn to deal with it, let it go, and move on. When you keep doing this little by little, you'll realize something incredible. You're filled with joy. You're filled with love, and you don't even need a reason for it. People might come up to you and say, "Wow, you look so happy. You seem so full of joy and love. What happened?" And your answer might be, "Nothing happened. You didn't meet someone special or have a big life event. You're just happy for no reason at all." That's what happens when you let go of all the negativity and emotional baggage. When it's no longer inside you, the real you, the light that's always been there, starts to shine through. And here's the amazing part. That feeling you're experiencing, that joy and love, it's not even the peak. You might think, "I feel love all the time, I must be at the top." But that's just the beginning. It simply means you've stopped blocking yourself from feeling the light that's already there. It fills you up, and you become someone who radiates light. Other people can feel it too. They'll sense your positivity, and it might even help them heal or feel better. You're projecting that light outward, and it makes a real difference. But even that, as amazing as it sounds, is not the final destination. As you keep letting go of more and more things, you'll reach a point where not only do you feel the light coming down and filling you up, but you'll also feel like something is pulling you upwards. It's like a powerful force, almost like a vacuum, lifting you higher and higher. That's the journey. You let go, you stop holding on to all the garbage, and eventually you're just filled with light, joy, and love, without needing a single reason for it. And that's what true happiness looks like. This is your true essence, calling you to not sink into negativity or get lost in distractions. It's calling you to return to your true self, to come back to your awareness, your consciousness. As you answer that call, it lifts you up, and as you rise, your experience starts to expand. But here's the thing. It's not that your consciousness is expanding, because consciousness is already infinite. It's as vast as the whole universe. What's really happening is that you're stopping the contraction of your consciousness. Some of the greatest spiritual teachers understood this. Take Meher Baba, for example. When he talked about merging, he meant that his individual consciousness had united with the source of all consciousness. He described it as if a drop of water had fallen into the ocean. Imagine trying to find that drop again. Once it's in the ocean, it's impossible. It's completely merged with something much larger than itself. This is what's known as merging. In fact, the word yoga means union or merger. It's that union with the source of consciousness that we're talking about. It's the same concept that Christ spoke about when he said, "My Father and I are one." It's what Buddha referred to when he merged into nirvana. The idea is that your individual sense of self, your ego, your small identity, has to be let go of. That's what Christ meant when he said, "Die to be reborn." Every word Christ spoke was actually the deepest form of spiritual teaching, the highest form of yoga. And that's the core message that every enlightened teacher has ever shared, letting go of the small self to reconnect with the greater whole. So, as you learn to let go of yourself, you allow this process to happen. Eventually, your individual self merges with something much bigger, the true source of who you are. And what happens after that? When you merge, you become a blessing to the world. You no longer live from your ego or your limited sense of self. Instead, you become a channel for the light and energy of that greater source. It's not about struggling to be okay or to fix everything. You realize that you are everything. The entire universe is within you. Isn't that amazing? It's almost funny when you think about it. We spend so much time feeling small, like we're just struggling to get by, when in reality we are part of something so much bigger. So I've given you the way forward. The key is to learn how to handle things and not let them trap you or weigh you down. When you do that, you don't hold on to negative emotions or situations. You don't store them inside, and once you learn that, the process of rising, of ascending, starts to happen naturally. Keep working on this. Bit by bit, as you let go of the small stuff, you'll feel yourself being pulled upward, toward your true state of being. And that's where the real transformation happens. Thank you for listening.